What's up, guys? Today, of course, I'm going to be talking about the Battlefield 1 patch notes that came out as of, well, December 12th. They were leaked in the time I'm making the commentary, but of course, the patch and the notes will be live December 13th. So as usual, what I do is break down important parts of the patch I believe you should know, and of course, give my opinion on them, whether they are actually prominent or basically if you should know about these changes or not. I don't include them all. I'll include it in the description, hopefully this time, because I forgot the first couple hours last time because I was doing a whole bunch of videos all at once and I forgot to put it in. Hopefully I remember this time. Human beings, right? So I'll cover what I think's important and we'll break it down together. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on any point that we go through. First things first, it's not in the patch, but of course what was announced recently is CTE will be announced for Battlefield 1's future, which of course is a good thing. It means it can test for balance issues, it can test for bug fixes, and implement changes before it actually goes to the live game. I think it'll help for Battlefield 1's longevity in the future to have it, and it's genuinely a good thing to be able to play test something before it's implemented into the game. So CTE coming out, good thing, stay tuned for that. Also of note, not mentioned in the patch notes, the quit button apparently has been fixed this time. They said it would be fixed in the last patch, but it just turned worse. So we'll see. Not in the patch notes, but the DICE devs did say it will be implemented in this patch. Also, of course, as you know, I think part of the big feature for this patch, a new map called Giant Shadow, which will be available on the 13th for those who pre-ordered and got premium. It's a new map for Battlefield 1 players, of course, and it's free. Well, assuming you bought the game, you get it for free anyway, of course. And it's the 13th for pre-order and premium, and it's the 20th for anyone else who just bought, say, just the standard game. Of course, I'm going to play this map probably about 5-10 times to really get an opinion on it, and of course I'll break it down into the future once I really get enough of a sample size to come to a conclusion as to what's good and bad about it. So let's get to the patch for one here. Spectator mode was added, so now you're going to be able to join a live Battlefield 1 match as an observer. You can switch between first and third person mode on any of the players to observe them, and maybe you can do this to check to see how they play, learn from them, learn as a skillful player watching another skillful player play, or maybe you can just see if he's cheating, something of that sort. I guess it would also be good for the montage makers out there to add some creativity to the montage. It's a good thing, no problems there, of course. Added to this patch, and something I will break down in the future, of course, too, is standard issue rifle modes, where all kits are granted their faction-specific rifles. So, for example, if you're playing on a British faction, you get the SMLE Mark III. If you're playing on the Germans, you're going to get some sort of Gewehr rifle. And these rifles are not equipped with optics and are intended to provide the player with gameplay inspired by World War I trenches. So, I guess they're going for authenticity here. It's a custom game option. You can't access it through regular servers, so you'd have to go through the custom game menu to try and access this particular type. And of course, I'll try it out and I'll give you my opinions on it later on, of course. Soldier movement as part of the patch was fixed. The inability to sprint out of crouch and prone has now been fixed. You can now do this, as well as fixing issues with toggling zoom. Aim assist for consoles was also addressed. Apparently, it requires the player to be aimed down, or basically aiming for you to be able to get the aim assist, as opposed to previous cases where you could simply strafe by them and get it, and apparently that was a bug. My girlfriend will probably be buying this for Christmas for me for console, so I can't express an opinion on it, having not played it yet, but as of after Christmas, I imagine I'll be able to do just that, so we'll see. I know some people don't like aim assist at all. Some people think it's a necessary part of playing with the sticks on a controller. We'll see how it plays when I get it, and then I'll give you my opinion. With regard to vehicles, there were lots of changes. Fighter airplanes now have significantly higher damage to their machine guns overall, and bombers take more damage from machine guns. Rockets have been given an additional velocity boost to make their usage more consistent. Another big part, and I believe this applies to all vehicles, is called line of sight. So it says DICE basically says here, we've added head glitching style fix to vehicles that prevents players from shooting over objects that block the weapon's line of sight, most notable in third person. So basically what will happen is if you're aiming behind a crate and you can see the enemy but he can't really see you, as in that head glitching form, that's no longer the case. You actually have to expose yourself a bit. Especially if you're driving a tank, you have to drive a bit forward to shoot the guy, and he has to be able to peek to hit you. It's good. It raises the skill gap this way. There's more vehicle changes as well. The Tank of Air, both on the Landship and the Tank Hunter class, has been buffed significantly. So it has a maximum of 180 damage now as opposed to 150. Landship mortars. The Landship mortar class, like for the tank itself, now has 5 seats, with 2 new additional LMG seats available to the package, and the mortars now have slightly increased range. So that class received quite the significant buff. I'm still not sure how viable it is using mortars on a Landship tank, but I guess that's me. I just don't see it. But I do admit, though, it had some definite positive changes based on the logic I just presented to you there. The squad support style of Landship now features a front-firing 20-meter cannon like the light tank flanker type, instead of the LMG, which this one I'm really curious to try out. You have 2 people on comms firing on the sides to deal with vehicles, and you have a 20-meter cannon in front. That's going to do some real damage. I actually can't wait to try that one out. It also received, the Landship itself received quite a significant buff. It now takes the same amount of damage as a heavy tank, so they both can, well, pardon the pun, tank a lot more damage together. And they decreased the amount of health restored by emergency repairs on the heavy tank down to 20% from 30. So that's significant. You're going to have to play a bit more patient now with the heavy tank, as if you weren't. A lot of people were complaining that you weren't already playing patient enough. Also of note too, emergency repairs down 5%, down to 25 from 30%. So again, you have to be a little bit more cautious, although 5% definitely won't break the tanks. They decreased the damage of case shells or firing against planes by 50%. So I imagine that the average shell of use probably isn't going to be able to take out a plane flying by in one shot, which sucks because I really liked doing that. That was so much fun. Some things I'm sure some people are going to be mad about here. Stationary AA range was dropped to 334 meters. It used to be 400. I imagine some people won't like that at all. And lastly, there were, of course, a few other little changes in the way of machine gun damage, buffed or changed by 4%. Decreased the airship killer machine gun damage by 18%. The one that's of most prominence here, though, is the tail gunner damage on some of the planes was reduced by 23% damage from far away and 42% in close, which is definitely going to make it much harder to kill a plane that's tailing you. So be wary with that. Weapons were changed quite a bit, as you'd expect as well. First, of course, shotguns, which are always in every FPS game you ever play, someone's going to complain, whether it's overpowered or underpowered. So there's no winning with this. But here's what DICE did anyway. They reduced the range on buckshot variants of the M97 Trench, the Model 10A as expected, and the sawed-off shotgun, and they reduced the maximum one-hit kill range of these weapons. They made the M97 Trench more attractive by adding an extra pellet to all variants and slightly reducing the damage drop-off for the sweeper variant. In addition to that, the backboarded shotgun variants have had their range improved, as while it says previously it took too big of a hit for the improved recoil. So it's been, well, the range is improved basically for this weapon. LMGs as well, they've had significant changes. They wanted to make it, DICE says their mission was to make it more consistent in close and medium range. It says previously optical configurations had a significant advantage over the rest unless a bipod was used, but now the accuracy of the second shot is the same for all variants of one LMG and just slightly above the level previously held by the optical setups. Using a bipod will still give you a significant bonus when actually firing for accuracy, and they've added a small bonus to horizontal recoil when aimed with optical variants. They improved reload timers to better match animations and made the Lewis gun overheat slower. And I'll get to that. The Lewis gun got a really good buff. Before I do, here's a note for bayonets I'm sure a lot of people are going to love. Now you can actually charge people when you're out of ammo or while reloading with a weapon equipped with a bayonet, which is really nice. I thought it was something that was a slight oversight that it wasn't in the game in the first place, but it's in, no complaints. So now if you feel long reload time on, say, the Mondragon or something, you can actually charge someone. It's going to make for more interesting melee fights for sure, because now you can actually charge instead of waiting to reload or switching to a sidearm. We'll see. It should be fun. Going to the detailed weapon change, going back, like I said, the Lewis gun here got quite the buff in terms of reduced reload times for both empty and when full. 0.3 being the most prominent change when it's reloading from completely empty down to 4.2 seconds at what was previously 4.5. So that's a good change. They slowed down the overheat. It now overheats at 50 rounds fired as opposed to 35. And they slightly reduced the horizontal recoil on it as well. So the Lewis gun, I think, is going to get a lot more attention now of note. The Madsen, which is probably, as of now, my favorite LMG, was actually nerfed a little bit. They added 0.2 seconds to the reload animation, but it shouldn't hurt it. It's only 2.65 seconds now. It's not going to murder the weapon. Of note for all you sickos out there that love the M1903 experimental, they improved the accuracy and recoil of it, as well as improved hip fire. So if you liked it before, you're probably going to like it even more now. In terms of sidearms and revolvers, most revolvers and the Howdah pistol recover faster from dispersion. So that's a nice change there. Flares now set people on fire, or they do not set people on fire immediately after firing them when looking down. So if you're the player shooting the flare, you don't actually set yourself on fire anymore, is basically what I'm trying to say. And here's another one I'm sure a lot of you people are going to hate, but the Martini-Henry bug was fixed. And if you didn't know what that meant, it's going to sound like a massive nerf, but it's actually, they fixed it to the way it should have performed previously. So how it works is, of course, you know the multipliers. You'd get 0.9 for lower body and upper arms, and 0.75 multipliers for hitting legs and forearms. So it basically matches the sweet spot of all other weapons of its type. And I guess previously it was getting a 1 times multiplier no matter where you hit on the person's body. So that was an issue, because it means that because of the iron sights, say you shot someone at 75 meters in the sweet spot, you'd probably just say, oh, I guess I got him in the chest. But it turns out you might have hit him in the arm, but because it was acting as a 1 times multiplier, you were killing him when you probably shouldn't have. So it will be a nerf, and it will take the weapon down a notch, but it's how it should have been performing to begin with. So it is what it is. It also resupplies at 5 bullets at a time when you are getting resupplied, so that's a nice buff there too for getting weapon ammo back. The number 3 revolver, in terms of sidearms, got a nice buff as well. The reload time on it is down to 2.3 seconds. It was 2.6. And the fire rate's been increased by what looks like 14 rounds per minute. So the revolvers now, or that revolver at least, is going to have my attention to give it a try. The Repeater pistol also received a buff. Horizontal recoil is much lower, as well as stationary dispersion being a lot lower. So there's 2 new ones for you to try. This one here I know that you guys are going to hate. The Hellriegel was nerfed as well. And this one's been continuously happening a lot. First shot recoil multiplier with an additional 0.2 added. It's now up to 2.0. The Hellriegel's horizontal recoil was also increased as well from 0.76 up to 0.8. And this one's a bit puzzling to me. I understand the Hellriegel is probably the best, if not one of the best weapons to possibly use for assault. But shotguns were nerfed, and possibly rightfully so in terms of the Model 10. The only issue, or the 10A, the biggest issue I find with it though is with the Hellriegel continually being nerfed, the Automatico is probably going to become the top dog if it really affected it that badly, and everyone's just going to swap to that. As opposed to, I know the MP18 first shot recoil multiplier was reduced, but it's still not viable compared to the other 2 weapons. Let's not kid ourselves. So maybe they should buff the other weapons up a little bit, just to make them a little bit more of attractive options. But I'll relook it, because I actually can't remember all of the assault weapons off the top of my head. The Huot, I released this weapon review recently, and it was really mixed. I found some people, it's like I fucking stepped on some guy's puppy or something. Some people really, really loved that weapon, and I get it. Is that if you stayed stationary and you were on bipod and you were far away, it was a laser beam. Yes, I get it. I didn't like the low fire rate. I didn't like the spread using that weapon when active. I found most of the other LMGs I equipped at the time I could butcher a server much more efficiently with. And in this case here, I guess DICE agreed because they buffed it. Its minimum damage is now up to 23 from 21. And they cut the horizontal recoil in half even further. So 0.32 to 0.16. And because damage drop off for all LMGs is now going to happen at farther distance, that thing actually might be a beast now. When we already knew that stationary was already good. It might be extremely good now. So we'll see. We'll see. But, I mean, it is a level 10 weapon. You'd expect some sort of reward for going all the way to 10 with it. We'll see though. Balance is priority. Reduce the effect of suppression and on LMG vertical recoil. And this one here is a bit interesting here with regard to the sniper rifles. The Gewehr 98 for the post-reload delays is 0.8, which was 0.4. So it got a decent nerf of almost half a second in terms of reload speeds. The SMLE and the M1903, though, however, were reduced, so they received a buff in reload times. So we'll get to gadgets. In terms of gadgets, Dykes believe they nerfed the mortar a little bit too much in the last update, so mortars will now be more accurate when they're placed, and slightly more accurate during sustained fire. The damage amount, though, that's unchanged. The syringe for the medic class. This one here, I'm sure it's just going to drive the community insane. This one's going to be the powder keg. They've added a short cooldown in between syringe uses and added the ability to ignore the cooldown if you're near an ammo crate. So, together a medic and support can team up to quickly revive a large amount of soldiers. The cooldown is minor and it's intended to only prevent the near instant revive of several soldiers in a short time. And I know some people will hate this. And the reason they did it, the logic behind it, was to prevent revive trains of say someone does a really good job of exploding an area of camping teammates and 3 or 4 people go down. Someone could just go over, revive in 2 seconds, and they're back up. So it sort of takes out the strategic, logical element of playing that intelligent attacker, taking out that defender, and now pushing into that new lane to traverse to gain more ground. And I don't know, with this nerf, we'll see how much it changes. A support, basically, I'm not going to draw any conclusions until I really see how long that gap is in between. We'll see. If it's like a 2-3 second delay, then it's a little bit much. If it's only a second or so, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. We'll see how big the gap is before, and we'll get to that one. Ammo and medic crates. Dice says it's going to be much more reliable and useful to deploy them, and I imagine it says we've given additional healing and resupply power. So I imagine what it is you'll be able to reload or get yourself back up to full power quicker than you would with the pack. You just have to give up the downside of you have to be right next to it as opposed to continually moving around. We'll see, and it'll probably reload faster this way. So, in terms of explosive icons, they changed a few things up with it. Basically, that if a grenade lands anywhere near you, it's going to give you an indicator as to where it is. That's a nice little change they've got there. I appreciate that. And they've sort of changed up the HUD and scale of it, so it's no longer obstructive at longer ranges, and they don't dominate the field of view in closer ranges. So it's minor changes there. Hardcore mode, though, received quite a few changes here as well. So, in hardcore mode, what's going to stay the same is it's not going to show the position of objectives, players, etc. The map won't anyway. And they've intended for the players in hardcore to only have the UI for things that a real soldier would see. So, for example, how many grenades he has, but not how many bullets left in the magazine. So they're also going to continue down the road of not having kill confirmations, except for when you kill teammates, just to, I guess, help people out learning the new mode. So what they did change, though, however, is with regard to damage. In Battlefield 4, of course, what would happen is it would be slightly lower health. The damage model would be the same. In Battlefield 1, they changed that up. Previously, before this patch, it was 200 damage. Basically, it was double damage whenever you shot the weapon. And they reduced that to 125% damage. So it's 25% more damage per shot, basically, is what's going on. And what's happening, the reason why they did it is they didn't want bolt-action rifles being the only ones you really would use for prominence and killing people off. So we'll see how that changes. I'm still not the biggest fan of hardcore just because of all the team killing. But I will go back, because I am an objective person. I'll go back and revisit it and see how it changes up the game. In terms of stability, performance, of course, they look to optimize things a bit. Optimize things both on PC and console. The one thing of note that I didn't see get addressed is the DirectX crashing. I know there are tons of forums and tons of information on those crashes, and having a 770 myself, GTX, I have experienced those crashes quite a bit. I've implemented a couple of new different strategies that have reduced those crashes, but I do still get them. So nothing was mentioned with this. I'd like to see just what has, if anything, DICE has done with that. I doubt very much it was addressed in this patch though. But optimization might have actually fixed it up. We'll see. Maybe it crashes less. Let me know if you have a GTX card, or any card, I guess, AMD, whatever, that's crashing and having issues, and see if this patch actually changed it up for you. And lastly, we'll get into gameplay. I know it's 20 minutes, but guys, just enjoy it. With regard to the gameplay, some modes, or some matches, I should say, Monte Grappa, Suez, Ballroom Blitz, and Argonne Forest, they were changed. Certain layouts were changed because certain sectors of maps had a hard time being taken. And operations was adjusted quite a bit, and it's going to change how it plays, which is interesting. They reworked how the behemoth enters the map in operations mode, so it no longer appears if a team has a significant lead, and this affects both attackers and defenders. Defenders will no longer get a behemoth on a new level if attackers are on their last battalion. Reduced attacker behemoths to prevent one from on each retry of the second and third maps. They increased the score difference between teams needed to get the behemoth. So these are significant changes. I really like to see how they're going to play out, and I'll have to play operations to really arrive at a conclusion with that. Little tweaks here and there that I approve of here. They fixed an issue where a player was not being rewarded the score for just stepping out of the bounds of the conquest flag when capturing it for just that split second. And that's a nice change. It's a bad habit, I know, but I was doing it quite a bit. Probably lost out in a good couple thousand points doing it, so that's changed now. Well, a little tweak here with grenades, not in terms of damage, but when you tossed it, a lot of the time you just noticed it was just stationary. It wouldn't spin, it wouldn't move. That has changed. It actually does spin now. So, and again, in terms of UI, they increased performance and stability. Hardcore now shows team kills in the score log, like I said previously. And squads with players in a party now stay unlocked if there's only 2 players in the party, so no more searching through and surfing through all sorts of different squads. So those are the prominent ones. Of course, it's not featuring everything. Hopefully I remember to include the patch notes, and you can go over every single little gritty detail you want, as well as, I'm sure, other information that'll probably be announced that I just couldn't have known until we actually started playing the game. And of course, I'll review all the new maps and game modes and everything else that comes with it in the near future for you guys. So, of course, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. What's good about the patch, what's bad about the patch. If you've encountered more problems or less problems doing it, you know, the works. So that's it. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Share it with someone if you want to share the news. And subscribe if you'd like to see more. Have a good one, YouTube.